You started with a dream, now you leading a team. Working it closing them deals, working with purpose. You don't walk around with a purse, but you working it, walking the hills. Beauty and brains, speaking and fighting for change. Intellectual and clever.
So pretty much house hacking is where you are going to buy a 2-flat, a 3-flat, a 4-unit, and live in one unit and you rent the other units out. So essentially you are living for free. That is the idea of house hacking.
Table, grinding from all different angles. Got you on trips, making money for the bank. You stay focused and you tryna get your paper. Independent, never asking for no favor. She got flavor, look at her behavior. They were sleeping on you, now they finna wake up.
I just want you guys to understand your purchasing power that you have as a first-time home buyer or as a home buyer in general.
Bossed up, never lost touch, it's going down. Gotta see you play monopolies for the properties we own now.
Really? For real?
Hello. Welcome back to another session, another interview series of the Flippin and Heels presents Badass Women in Real Estate Virtual Summit. This is our 4th annual summit, and I'm so excited to have this amazing lady here with me today. This amazing young woman who is in real estate, and we've been connected on social media for years now.
Yeah.
And you know, it's almost like I can't even count 2020 because it's like you blink and it was like, what happened? But even prior to that, she was online helping individuals invest in real estate and house hacking and teaching about house hacking and doing courses and all of that amazing stuff. And so without further ado, welcome. Thanks so much, Kendra, for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So, I'll let you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Kendra, and I'm the founder of the Key Resource. And basically, I started the Key Resource like 5 years ago now, basically to inspire, empower, and educate people on how to get started with real estate investing, because I realized that representation is so important. And so when I got started real estate investing, like there was nobody out there who was young and Black and a woman saying like, hey, you can look like me and also own like multiple properties. And so I started just to be what I needed when I, got started out. So I love what I do. Love it.
Love it. Okay, cool. So, like you said, representation does matter. And I love the fact that you started the Key Resource for that reason, because I feel like we definitely have similarities there, right? Like even when starting Flippin' and Heels, it was like, where are the women? And I thank God for social media. You know, so many people are like, oh, social media is trash or whatever, but it's obviously in the way that you use it. And by the way I was using it and getting connected with so many women and women like you, it was like, wow, Black real estate investors do exist. Oh, wow, women investors do exist. So seeing that definitely does matter. And like I said, when we got started, like we didn't have that many people that we could look up to. So you are definitely a change maker there. So thanks so much for starting that and leading the way. So tell us a little bit about like the Key Resource and then the actual process that you're taking, your students through or your group members. Like what is the actual process of, like we talk about investing, right? But it's so general. So what niche?
So I'm a buy and hold investor. So I buy properties, rent them out, right? And I've never wholesaled, I've never flipped. And so I don't teach people how to do that, but I love also like highlighting other investors who like that's their expertise. I love shining light on others. And so that's my thing too. But I'm a buy and hold investor. Started out in Washington, D.C. My husband and I bought our first home there, our first rental properties there, and then bought a property in Maryland as well. So that's like our home base. And like I said, I'm trying to teach people what I wish I knew when I started. And one of the things that I really missed out on was house hacking. Like no one told me about that strategy. And I feel like I wasted so much money not knowing. But even if I had known about it too, I feel like I wasn't even in the like right wealth building mindset to even take advantage of the opportunity, which is another thing, like just thinking about sacrifices, like short-term sacrifices, versus like long-term returns. So that's like part of what I do and take my group members through, my audience through is like, look, you gotta make sacrifices. If you're building wealth from the ground up, it's not going to be easy. Like you have to make those sacrifices in the short term. But house hacking is like one of those things that I wish I had known about sooner.
Hmm. So when you mention house hacking, what is house hacking for those who don't know? Everybody should know, right? But but what is house hacking for those who don't?
Yeah, house hacking is basically when you buy a multi-unit property, you live in one unit and you rent out the other units. And there's so many benefits to it, but you're basically buying an asset, right? And you're living in it. If the numbers work out correctly, you're living in it for free and your tenants are paying that debt. And it's just so cool because what happens when people want to get started with real estate investing is there's this huge hurdle, right? That cost of entry, that the down payment. There's a huge hurdle in the down payment, and they're like, "Well, I can't afford the down payment. Like, how am I ever going to do that? Like, it's too expensive to get into real estate investing." But as you know, Rashana, like because Chicago is like one of the best places to house hack. Y'all have so many multi units there. When you house hack and when you actually buy the property and you live in it, you're tearing down that hurdle because you're able to get more favorable loan terms. You're able to put less money down, right? Which is a huge sticking point for most people.
Hmm.
By inhabiting it as your primary residence, you're able to come to the table with less money. And if you're a first time home buyer, you can even use programs where there's like little to no money down at all, right? So just imagine buying a property with little to no money down. I'm talking about like $10,000, $7,000 down, right? Like depending on where you live, living in that property for free, and your tenants are paying that mortgage every month, and then you could even be pocketing money on top of that. Like so many benefits, but that's house hacking in a nutshell. But if you live in a city where you don't have a lot of multi-unit options, like Atlanta is one of those cities where it's really hard to come by multi-units. um, or say you're just like, I don't even want to live in a multi-unit. There are people out there who are house hacking in a non-traditional sense, where they're like literally renting out basements, renting out guest houses. Like here in Texas, I'm in Texas now. Here in Texas, people have guest homes in the back of their houses, right? In places like DC and Maryland, even I think in Chicago, you guys have like basement apartments. People house hack by renting out rooms in their homes too. So there's so many ways to do it, but the basis of it is figuring out how to live with your mortgage completely covered.
Good, good stuff. I'm so glad that you mentioned that and breaking it down for, like you said, for people who may not have a lot of multi units in their market, because that'll be the first thing. Like, oh, there aren't a lot of multi units here to house hack. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with. I love Doug Depp's story. Doug out of Philly, where he, yes, house hacked his life. Like I think he had like a 3 bedroom home, and then eventually, rented out room after room. And then he was like, well, I can rent out my room and move to the garage. And he lived in his garage, for I think 2 years. And literally the tenants, paid for his mortgage. So that is a good key there. The other thing that you mentioned was being in the right mindset. I feel like that is definitely a big one. So let's dive into that a little further. Like, do you feel as though is it a generational problem? Like, where's the issue in terms of people not being in that mindset to take advantage of wealth building?
Yeah, I think it first starts with realizing that you're worth it. And I think that's something that we all struggle with. Like, it's like me, the person who used to have like bad credit and like terrible spending habits, like, I'm actually worthy of being wealthy. Me, the person who comes from a line of, what, and I'm speaking like in generalizations here. Like, if you come from poverty or if you're the first person to go to college, it's like, I'm worthy of like owning multiple properties and being a wealthy real estate investor. So I think that's the first thing is realizing you're worthy of wealth, right? And then I think it is generational where even to this day, I have family members who are just like, why don't you just work and like do a regular job and like just retire like regular people? Like, why do you want to be out here doing all these things? And um, I think when you're the first person in your family to like invest in real estate or to like break the mold, you will get a lot of pushback because people are projecting their fears on you, and that's scary, right? And
Hmm.
I think it comes from one them not knowing, but also them wanting to protect you because there is risk, right, in investing and stuff like that. There's risk in stepping outside of your comfort zone. But I'm like, you got to do it anyway because there's an old school way of thinking, right? There's a way that like our parents were brought up where the golden ticket was getting that good government job and then working until you're like 70 and then you retire and live the life of your dreams. That's what was, attainable to them. That's what like the golden ticket was to them. For us, it's different, right? And so I think you have to push past people projecting their fears on you, and just you can show them the way with your success, right? Like, I know you guys don't see it. I know you might not believe it,
Mhm.
but like, watch me work. And that's basically
Yeah.
what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So I want to dive into your experience as a buy and hold investor in the market, and the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups, the downs, the woes. And you said, when you say you and your husband, you guys bought your first property together.
Yeah, and so I'm married, and people are like, "Well, where is he at? Like, he's not on your social media." So he's a very behind the scenes kind of person, but we do our real estate investing together. He don't do Instagram. So
Mhm.
he's just back there like cheering me on and everything like that. But yeah, we bought our first rental property in DC and bought it in the hood. Everyone was like, why would you buy in that neighborhood? Like, this is a terrible idea. And now like they wish they had bought in that neighborhood. But that's a whole other story. But we played cash flow like one weekend. Like, here we are working for the government, never had any plans to invest in real estate. We owned the home we lived in, and we had thought that was it. We're like, we're gonna live in this house forever. Like, that's what people do, right? You just like, we're just going, status quo. Played cash flow, which is a game basically teaching you how to get out of the rat race of life. So you're living paycheck to paycheck or whatever, you have debt, and it's teaching you that in order to live your dream, you have to invest to achieve financial freedom. Played that game. We're like, wait a minute, we need to invest in real estate. Like, in real life, we have to win. And in order to win, you need investments to make your money make money. Boom, found a duplex, right? We're like, oh, this is a great duplex. It was $228,000, which was really not bad for DC at the time. Needed a little bit of work. It had a tenant in one. The other unit was empty. We're like, cool. The mortgage was like $1,025 a month. So we're like, man, we could make a pretty good, return on this. We bought it, and the down payment was $57,000, and we did not have $57,000. And I didn't know about any alternative financing methods, like all the things that you teach people. No one had ever told us that. So the only place we knew to get the money was from our retirement accounts. So we worked for the government. We took a loan from our retirement accounts to pay that down payment, which is a good option. Like, if it works for you, I would definitely say consult with a financial advisor to make sure that works for you. For us, that money made more money in that investment property than it was making in our retirement accounts, for sure.
Mhm.
But that's all we knew to do, right? So got that property, and the mindset piece is, even though that property was perfect for house hacking because it had a tenant in one unit already, and the other unit was empty, we could have easily moved in there and put down way less. Than matter of fact, if we would have lived in that property, we would have only had to put down like $8,000 if we did FHA, which is nuts. Like, it's like, do we waste $50,000? But and no losing, only lessons. No losing, there's only lessons, right? So, but
Yeah, and the higher down payment obviously lowers your mortgage payment.
yeah, and we were able to do Airbnb because with FHA, they don't like the short-term rental. So pros
Mhm.
and cons. But even if I had known about house hacking then, I was like, I'm not downsizing. Like, I'm not moving out of my big house with all this space that we don't need. Cause I got two degrees. I got a bachelor's and a master's, and I work hard every day at a job that I hate. I was like, no, I would never give my space up. Right. And so that's that mindset piece. I didn't get hip to house hacking until our next property, which we bought a 4 unit, and we did actually house hack that. So that's kind of how we got into it.
Mhm. And did you sell the single family or you kept that one?
We kept it. Yeah, we still have it.
Nice. Okay. And then so the next well, like you said, the first house hack or the next property was a 4 unit. And so what were some lessons that you guys learned house hacking with your tenants, right? Because I feel like a lot of people have that fear of, oh well, I don't want to live with my tenants. I don't want them to know I'm the landlord, or all of this and that. How did you guys deal with those objections, if there were any?
Yeah, some people do it to where like the tenants don't know they're the landlord. They will just say they're like a property live-in property manager, or they pretend like they're another tenant. For us, whenever we toured the property, like the property already had tenants in it. So it was a 4 unit, 3 units were occupied, one was unoccupied. And so when we toured that property, we met the tenants. Like it was very important for us to see like what we were getting. And so in that case, there was like no secrets. They knew that we were buying the property. And so it is tough. And that's that sacrifice piece because you're sharing walls with your tenants. And if anyone has ever lived in an apartment, I mean, apartment living is already, it's a compromise. Like you literally are sharing walls with other people. There's noises and all kinds of stuff. Walls are thin. So that's one piece to it. But also, like, um, just that like privacy, right? Like your tenant can knock on your door anytime of night, or so it's just like setting those boundaries was big. But the biggest piece for us was we had purchased a property occupied, and the tenants were not the best tenants on earth. And so we had to put them out. And my fear was like, we're literally putting people out who know where we live. Like, they know where we live. Like, is it going to be a problem? But we didn't have any issues. We were able to finally get tenants in that we selected. And I don't want to make it seem like buying occupied properties is bad because it's not. Like three of the properties that we purchased have had tenants in them already. And it's not always a bad thing, but there is a potential that you are buying someone else's problem. You just have to do your due diligence and figure out if it's right for you.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, good stuff. And so, speaking of due diligence, I want to ask you about your screening process, and then more importantly, like even after your screening process of getting a
Mhm.
tenant in there, maintaining a tenant. Because I remember seeing like a post that you did one day with like this goodie basket for your tenants, and I just thought it was the most amazing thing. But not every landlord is like that, right? So first and foremost, the screening process of finding good quality tenants and then maintaining the tenants.
Yeah, the biggest part of the screening process for us is like that interview because you can really tell a lot about a person when you meet them. So, yes, of course, you can do background checks, credit checks, but I think that screening process is important. And one thing people forget, and one thing we learned the hard way, is that you need to meet every single person that's going to be on that lease. Like, there's been a time when we accepted like a husband and wife, and we never met the husband, we only met the wife. And it ended up being that that husband was the downfall of the whole situation. Like we had to put them out because of things he was doing. And I think if we would have met him, we would have known like, okay, this is not going to be a good fit. And so for us, like anyone who's on that lease, I don't care. If you have kids, all y'all need to come to the interview. Like everybody needs to be there. That's just us
Hmm.
personally. As far as maintaining, I feel like little things just to add that personal touch. Like if you think about it, when your tenants fill the application out, you have their birthday. So even though you never talked about it, like send them a card for their birthday, right? Like just little things like that. I know some people who incorporate like cleanings into their agreement. So if the tenant pays on time, and by on time, like on the first or sooner, like not by the fifth or whenever that like grace period is. If you pay on time every month for 3 months in a row, you get like a free cleaning service. On one hand, that's an added perk for your tenant. On the other hand, you get to maintain your property and keep eyes on it. Like someone's constantly going in there making sure that it's well kept. And so those are just some different things. But yeah, the gift basket whenever they move in is something that we do as well.
Nice, good stuff. So the next thing that I want to touch on, so you guys, you and your husband, like you say, you moved out of the DC area to the Texas area for a little over a year now. And so you've been managing your properties out of state, or did you guys decide to hire a property manager?
No, we're still self-managing from out of state. And this is actually the second time that we've lived out of state. We had moved to Texas a few years ago, and then we moved back to DC. My husband's job at the time moved us out here, and then we moved back. Then we both retired from our jobs, early retirement, and then we moved back out here. So let me tell you, like, honest moment, the pandemic put a wrench in what we felt like self-management from afar would look like. So previously when we lived out of state and had our rentals on the East Coast, we have like people on the ground that we trust that we've worked with for years, like contractors and things like that. So in some cases, we're like, hey, make a phone call, boom, if something needs to be fixed. And then like FaceTime and video chat is your friend. But also, my husband would just hop on a plane sometimes. Like if he just felt like he wanted to be there, or if he felt like he could fix it himself and it'd be cheaper for him to do it because he's handy, cheaper for him to do it than to hire somebody. Literally, there are times when we would get a call from a tenant and he'd book a flight the next day because that's our business. And if it was a good ticket, it was like boom. And talking about that generational thing and the different thought processes, one time one of my family members was like, why y'all flying back and forth so much? Like, why? I'm like, no one ever questioned me. When I worked for the government, I was an international economist. The government sent me all around the world, all around the United States, all kinds of trips. No one ever said, why are you flying all over the place for your job? Like, why are you doing all that? But then we
Yeah.
fly over the place for our rentals, and they're like, y'all doing too much. You need to, I'm like, we're doing too
Mm,
much for our legacy. This is our business. No one
right.
ever questioned when the Department of Agriculture flew me all around and had me exhausted. And so I just think it's so interesting, like that mentality. But yeah, that's how we used to do. We used to just be like, all right, well, we'll fly, whatever, go check on this stuff. The pandemic put a wrench in that. And literally there was like pretty much like 10 or 11 months where we did not go back. We did not fly back. And so that was tough. Like we really had to rely on people and videos and pictures.
Yeah. What was the toughest thing that you guys dealt with at that time? Like, was it like tenants, like move in, move outs, or was it just more so like maintenance issues?
It wasn't even maintenance issues. We ended up having to get a really big renovation done. Like we got all of the siding replaced on our duplex, and for something like that, my husband's going to want to be there to oversee the contractors. Like contractors sometimes they do what they want to do sometimes. So if it
Oh,
comes to like
yes.
yeah, if it comes to like hiring a plumber, okay, I can do that from afar, right? That's something that's kind of like okay, but like replacing the siding, that was a $20,000 job that we didn't get to oversee, and so that was really really tough. But we do have a little one, and so for us, we just weren't comfortable with traveling, and that's just a decision we had to make.
Yeah, yeah, in terms of safety. Yeah. And so do you guys have any plans anytime soon to outsource the management, or like no, you guys are strictly like gonna continue doing the property management? And then also, do you use any property management softwares?
Yeah, we do not plan on getting a property manager still. I know it probably sounds crazy, but that's just
It doesn't. It
I know
doesn't.
some investors are like, I would never not have a property manager, but it's really hard to find for us to find a property manager that would treat our properties like we treat our properties. But the second question, yes, I do use Avail, Avil,
hmm
Avail as a online software.
hmm And what are some things that you like or dislike about the software? Because I think that's another thing. Like, I have a friend who has like 50 units and he self managed for a while and
Mhm.
he didn't have a software. So now I'm making him get a software, right? And I'm like, I don't know how you are. I mean, he's still driving around picking up checks. I'm like, dude, it is
No.
2021. Like, what are we doing here? So for those of you who are considering self-managing, considering, getting into buy and hold and rent properties, like having a property management software will help your process be more efficient and run a lot smoother. Like how strict are you like with your tenants using that software? Like is it maintenance requests and rent payments, or what are you using it for?
Yeah, so if they don't, I would prefer they pay rent payments through the software, but if as long as I don't have to physically go pick it up, I don't care if they PayPal, Venmo, they can drop it in a we
Cash
have a
app.
anything. We have a bank account where we will give them that account number, just the account, they can drop it in there. Like that's my only thing. I'm not chasing you down. I'm literally not coming to meet you. Even when we lived in the building with our tenants, no, you can't drop it off at my door. No, 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 no.
Right, right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Cool. Now I want to transition a little bit into just being a woman, a wife, a mom in this business, because again, this is the Flippin' Hills Virtual Summit. So just highlighting the fact that you are a woman in this business, and but the other roles and hats that you wear as well, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not it may, some people may think it's easy, or you may have some women, I'm sure you've heard this before. Oh, well, because she has a husband, like, oh, it's easier for her. And so, I mean, we can talk to everybody. We can talk to the married women, we can talk to the single women. But you, as a woman in this business, in this industry, like even dealing with contractors or dealing with tenants, like, is that something that you more so, take the lead on and the role on? Like, just what's that dynamic like in terms of being a woman with all of these other hats in the real estate business?
Yeah, I will say for anyone who's listening who is single, you do not need to wait until you get married to invest in real estate. Like most of my coaching clients, most of my students, they are single women. I mean, I'm talking about even I have a coaching client who's in grad school and bought a 4 unit. Like she's in school. Like people are out here doing it by themselves and killing the game. You know that, Rashana? Like, right? Isn't that what you see
Mhm.
from like your Infinity members and stuff like that? These single women are out
Mhm.
here killing it. So I actually wish I would have started before I got married. Because just imagine once we got married, I mean, how much more I would have brought to the table if we both would have started, as single people. And
Absolutely.
yeah, there's just so much opportunity there. So for me, as a mom, just in general, like I'm a new mom. My daughter is 1, and so I think being a mom and juggling everything with this pandemic has been kicking my butt. I am not gonna lie, like it's been tough. But I feel like I'm finally getting my footing a little bit on that. One thing I have experienced as a woman and as a Black woman, I don't know if you experience this too, but when you go and do business around the city, you're going to get a permit or whatever you're doing, and they're kind of like, when they find out you're the owner, they're like, "Wait, it's
Yeah, they
yours?"
think yeah, they think you're the property manager coming to do something.
Yeah, and it's like, no, like it's actually mine. And so then all the questions start. Well, like, how did you, like, what did you? But there was an instance where the police, those tenants we inherited at that 4 unit that were not the best people, the police came to talk to one of them.
Uh-huh.
And I really think they were about to try to like break the door down to like the building, how the main entry door. So
The
I came to the
police?
door. Yes, because I can't. So I came
Well,
to the
I
door
was
because
I
I
was
live
about to say,
there.
I think they was trying to do a little bit more to talk.
I know. So I came to the door because I live there, and I hear that. I'm like, hey, I'm the owner. Like, I can let you in if you need to or whatever. They didn't believe me. And so then I had to go into my file cabinet, right? Get the deed, show them, like, this is my name, here's my ID. And then they were like, well, can you get your husband? So I had to call my husband home from work, and he had to come because they literally felt like he needed to be there for some reason. Like, I just wasn't my
Wow.
word. First of all, my word wasn't good enough as a young Black woman, like that I actually owned this building. And then they were like, "Well, can you call your husband?" Why?
Right, right. Well, and what like and yeah, like what if you were not married, right?
Yeah.
That makes me think of the banker when the police came. You have a story just like that. Well,
Mhm.
kind of similar, but yeah, when the police came and they asked him, well, I guess what they told him, he was working on the premises and he had to leave, and he's like, no, actually, I'm an owner. And so
Yeah.
it's crazy that yeah, in 2021, yeah, yeah, like you said, in doing work with the city or what have you, and especially me, like I look 17. So, people, yes, I do get that as a woman, as a young Black woman, who is out here trying to do business. But one thing that I learned is that at the end of the day, and this is something that I even had to get over and just build confidence around, because like when I first started, I was like 22, sitting in
Mhm.
rooms with, wealthy, rich, um, white folks, people who did not look like me at all. But I was in these seminars and rooms just trying to get the information. So oftentimes I was definitely the youngest person in the room. And there was always that, um, just feeling self-conscious, like, just obviously I'm the youngest person in the room and nobody's gonna take me serious. But what I realized, and I don't remember when the shift happened, but once I was educated, th- my confidence went through the roof, because at that point, nobody can take away what you know, right? Like, you know
Yeah.
what you know. And more than likely, like, those police officers, they might not even own, their own homes, let alone a building, right? And so looking at you, and it's just so unbelievable because some people, they don't even see that for themselves. They can't even, fathom it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's so amazing that you are like sharing your story online too, and that you're empowering others to do the same because people need to see that. Like, it's
Mhm.
so important.
Yeah, yeah. So good stuff. So we talked about, like you said, your experience in terms of getting started. What's it like being a landlord out of state and house hacking, which is really good because I feel like that's definitely the wave right now. Everybody is getting into house hacking. And so, what are you guys looking at, like in terms of just what's next? What are you guys working on? Like I said, now that we're past the pandemic and by you having the title of new mom, are you guys continually looking at stuff to continue purchase more acquisitions from afar or more so local stuff?
Yeah, we're actually starting to look into building up our real estate portfolio here in San Antonio. And it's exciting because this is a military town. There's like 4 military bases here in San Antonio, which offers an amazing opportunity to like tap into that market. So and I also kind of want to start in location rental. Like, you know how people rent out spaces on like Peer Space? I don't know if you heard of that site or you probably
Mhm.
use Peer Space, right? So I've never
Mhm.
done that before. Like we've done Airbnb, we've done Section 8, we've done travel nurses, but I've never done like a location rental. And so I think that'd be super fun. I've also just invested in my first REIT, real estate investment trust, for anyone who's listening. And so I'm excited about that. Super passive income as far as
Yeah.
real estate is investing. There's pros and cons to that versus the property, having an actual property, right? But I thought it'd be cool. I mean, I'm really big on diversification. So
Mhm.
this is like 2021 for me is a year of like trying new things. So invested in a REIT. I want to get a location rental. Definitely want to capitalize on this like military base market. But my message to anyone out there who's like getting started, or even if you've already gotten started and you're getting that next property, that third, fourth, fifth property or whatever, make sure that you are putting yourself in a position to pivot. It is so important. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is you go into something with an idea like I'm about to get this property and I'm gonna rent it on Airbnb. I'm about to get this property and it's gonna be perfect for travel nurses, right? And you only run the numbers based on that idea, and you don't even know if it's gonna
Mm.
work in any other like. Is it gonna
Say
work
that
if you have to do Section
again.
8? Is it gonna work if you have to rent it to students? Like, is it still gonna
Is
be
it gonna
profitable?
work when if a pandemic hit?
Exactly. It's so important to put yourself in a position to pivot and figure out, like, in your city, in your market, what's your plan B or C going to look like? And is it still profitable for you? And so, as I'm thinking about these new things I want to start, I am making sure that I'm going to be able to pivot. And I know real estate investing is scary. For me, I'm the kind of person, I'm sure you are too, Rashana, like, you're not afraid to bet on yourself. You feel like, look, I'm just going to try it. And if it don't work, I'm going to make it work. But you still have to plan for that.
Oh, so good. So many good things there. I love the fact that you mentioned a REIT, and I actually want you to break that down a little bit more to us and like how you made the decision. And I also love the fact that you said 2021 is trying new things because yes, I have my real estate investments, I have stock investments. I'm doing this, life insurance thing now, and I'm like, you know what, just put money here, put money there, put money, and like you said, it's a matter of trying new things because it's like you work, you make money, and then it's like, okay, what's next? And like you said, it's because we are betting on ourselves, and we know, like I'm girl 9 to 5, I ain't never going back.
Yeah.
So it's like there's passive ways, there's slow ways, there's definitely less risky ways, right? But then there's also like long-term wealth building. Is like I have a lot of friends, like speaking of stocks, for example, right? Like you have long-term holds, which I am very much so invested into the safe stuff because it's so funny. Because in terms of like in real estate, but I'm got all this money out into a flip, right? And
Yeah.
anything can go wrong. So it's so funny, the dynamic of, being a real estate investor versus a stock investor. But yes, diversification is key. I'm so glad you touched on that. Because just in talking about building wealth and just what it means, like you said, just for generational wealth and things that we did not grow up talking about. Like, I was not sitting at the dinner table when I was 14 talking about REITs, never heard of one, right? Talking about
Mhm.
stock investing, options, life insurance, buy and hold investing, being a landlord. Um, so, I mean, it just shows you how our generation is definitely, changing some things up. We are the change makers, right? But yeah,
Mhm.
so the read, that's exciting. How did you make the decision? Like, because there's so many that are out there, right? So I'm sure you did your due diligence, and and then also, is it a local one? Is it nationwide? Tell us a little bit more about that.
It's nationwide, and it's a 7% return on the dividends. So when you invest in a REIT, it's almost like investing in stocks, but you're investing in real estate, right? And so you know how certain stock, well, I know you know, but I'm explaining. So you know how certain stocks have dividends um, that are paid out either on a monthly, quarterly, or however they pay them out. So in investing in a REIT is similar to investing in a stock with dividends. This particular REIT pays a 7% return on investment for their dividend, and this was my thing. We recently sold one of our properties, right? And I was like, how can I want to take that money, and with a portion of the money, I want to at least make like $800 to $1,000 a month. So I'm trying to figure out, is that buying a new property, or is it investing in this REIT? What are the pros and cons between doing both? And what I found was, if I were to buy a property with this X amount of dollars, I would probably make about the same per month as I'm going to make investing in this REIT. Like the monthly payout is monthly. So I was like, well, let me know what you think about this. So I'm like, okay, if you buy a property, yes. So let's go with the example of making $800 a month. So say the REIT pays you $800 a month and the property pays you $800 a month. With a REIT, you're not dealing with tenants, you're not dealing with any maintenance issues, right? But on the downside, you're also not getting the appreciation that you would with a property. You're also not getting the tax benefits, right? So that's why I think, like you said, diversification is key, because yeah, I'm still going to meet my goal of making that $800 to $1,000 a month, but I'm also not going to get all the benefits of actually owning the property. And that's just something I decided to do for this set of money. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of my thought process on that. Like, it's really passive, but also, like, if I would have actually bought a property with that money, I could have sold that property in 10 years for who knows how much. That's not going to happen with it's not going to happen with the REIT.
Hmm. And then your buyout, or I guess, like, how does, when you are ready to just pull your money out? Like, is there a penalty? Do you just have to stay in for X amount of time?
That's actually a good question. So, and I'm still new to the whole thing. I'm not a REIT expert. There are some online, and that's how I found this one, and like kind of studied that and picked it out of a lineup. But that's a good question.
Good, good stuff. No,
Refer
but I
to the
love it.
experts.
I love it. Like you said, it's just touching on diversification, and it's so funny. Like I said, for me, I jumped into stocks last year, kind of when I think everybody did, when it was like ain't
Yeah.
nothing else, ain't nothing else open, ain't nothing to do. Okay, well, you might as well throw your money in the market and make some money. Because even real estate, for like, to a good 2-3 weeks, was like people didn't want to go outside. It
Yep.
was just kind of crazy.
Yep.
And so, yes, diversification is key. So I'm so glad that we touched on that for this interview. But man, we touched on a lot of great things. Is there anything that you would just leave us with? Any final thoughts, just for women getting started, or just investors in general getting started, or just talking to women in general in this business, whether it's buy and hold investing, house hacking, working with contractors? Any final thoughts?
Yes. Like I said, first, realizing that you are worthy of it is going to be so valuable. You have to make that realization first. But also, when you get started, make sure that you're setting specific money goals. Like, don't be on here, don't like start investing in real estate because you heard me and Rashana talking about it, and now you think you have to do it. Because I feel like we live in this day and age where we're constantly comparing ourselves to people because of social media, which, like you said, I love Instagram. I've met some amazing people like you and like all these other Black people out there just killing it. And I love it for that. But I'm also constantly comparing myself too. I'm like, dang, Rashana just flipped like 5 properties in 2 months. I'm just making that up. But like, I have never flipped a property. So something wrong with me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or so and so just bought 2 properties in one week. I haven't purchased a property in a year. Like, and so while you are on social media, like getting inspiration, don't compare yourselves to other people. Just make sure you're moving in your own time. But when you're setting those specific money goals, you're going to be really clear on why you're doing this. Like, what are you in it for? So
Mm.
that will kind of help, you know, help you not constantly compare yourself. If you're setting those money goals, you're like, this is what I'm doing it for. These are my goals: pay off student loans, retire early, like whatever it is. Make sure you're doing it for that and not doing it for other people.
So good. And like you said, the thing is the sacrifice, right? The short term sacrifice for the long term gain. So while you're setting those goals, already have that expectation that those goals, in order for you to meet those goals, you're gonna have to do some sacrificing. So already let's get that out the way. So no, that was so good. So where can people find you, follow you, support what you have going on, check out your group? I'm sure, yeah, I mean, you always have amazing products and information that's out there for people. Ebooks. I mean, every time I remember one time I looked up and I felt like you was dropping a digital product like every other month. I was like, man, Kendra is coming with the gems. So yes, please share that.
That is hilarious. So you guys can find me on Instagram at the key resource, and you can find me. My site is thekeyresource.com. So I would love to chat with you guys. If you heard me on here, definitely send me a DM, and I'm just super excited to see where your journey takes you.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the interview series. I definitely gained a lot from you being here and just talking about the things that, again, people aren't talking about. And so, I mean, we're talking about them more, right? With all of
Yeah.
the resources and information that's out there. But like you said, just managing rental properties and why, you got into it, some of the pros and cons of that. And then, even more importantly, from there, continuing your investments, whether that's in real estate or not. Because I think the great thing about that is that your goals can change and they will
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming on, Kendra.
Awesome. Awesome interview. Thank you. I will talk to you later.
All righty. Bye bye.